Ayman Khan here for Seconds Out. Pleasure to be in the company of Chris Algieri in Las Vegas, former world champion Chris Algieri, who will also be hosting a live and exclusive watch-along chat for ppv.com during the fight of Manny Pacquiao versus Mario Barrios. Or should we appropriately say Mario Barrios is the world champion against Manny Pacquiao? Chris, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Happy to be out here in Las Vegas. It's amazing that it's a Manny Pacquiao fight week. You know, I know I love the correction. Mario Barrios is the champion. Mario Barrios, gets top billing. But when Manny Pacquiao fights, it's a Manny Pacquiao fight week.
So I want to get the political question out of the way in terms of Pacquiao's return as a former fighter. I wonder how you look at it look, Manny Pacquiao is a legend. He's but he's been given an opportunity to fight Mario Barrios because of maybe his status. How do you look at that in terms of the landscape of fighters who also would like an opportunity like that?
Well, yeah, he's getting this opportunity because he is Manny Pacquiao, and I remember when this first got announced that I was quite perturbed about that idea. But the contenders who now have to take a seat and watch their contender status and wait as Manny skips the line, so to speak. But again, you think about Manny Pacquiao and it's all he's done for the sport and what he is and who he is, and it's not surprising at all. Just to get right back in. What's surprising is that he's willing to come 4 years off the couch and go right into a title fight, right into a 12-rounder against a 30-year-old champion. But Manny's a warrior. That's what he does.
I watched your under 5-minute breakdown on the fight, and I wondered how much of when your thinking came down to assessing the fight and Pacquiao's strengths came from thinking about how great Pacquiao was and how much that maybe filtered subconsciously into your mind. Is that something that you have to really kind of think about when you're making your predictions on the fight?
So in terms of my prediction and my breakdown are different, but in terms of thinking about which version of Manny Pacquiao we're getting, I kind of took what Mario Barrios said. I'm preparing for the best Manny Pacquiao. Okay, so if I'm going to do my breakdown, I'm going to think about the best version of Manny Pacquiao, or as good as we're going to get, which we won't know until fight night. And in terms of the technical breakdowns, like, well, what could Manny do? What have we seen Manny do? And what would work in that scenario? But again, we're not going to know. I think I'm going to be able to see what's going on very early on. I think in the first round, being able to tell how Manny's feet are working, how his first step is, how willing to engage Barrios is in the first round, I think we're going to know a lot.
You've been in the shoes that Barrios has been in, having fought Manny Pacquiao. Is there an autumn? Does a fighter go into a fight with Pacquiao saying, look, I'm in with one of the greats here? And is that a factor you have to contend with in the fight that Mario will also have to contend with?
Yeah, I think you don't really have a choice. And I always say, fighting Manny Pacquiao, it's not just a fight. I call it the Manny Pacquiao experience, because the media whirlwind that precedes the fight, it's hard not to think you're fighting a legend and not to understand who it is you're getting in with. When I did it was a 7-city press tour. We were flying on private jets. We each had a different jet. It was wild. So experiencing that and also going to different countries all over the world and seeing how he is revered, it definitely puts you in a place, a mindset. It's like, this is a tall task. I got something in front of me that I've never seen before. I may never see something like this before again. Excuse me. Manny Pacquiao's a one-on-one. There's never been someone like Manny. There never will be someone like Manny. So you got to understand it going in, and it's hard not to get nostalgic when you're thinking about fighting someone like Manny Pacquiao. I just learned that Manny I think he made his pro debut at the age of when Mario Barrios was like 3 or something like that, or won his first world title or something like that, something ridiculous. So it's hard not to think about you fighting the best version of that, which I think is a good mindset. But that actually got me tricked up. When I fought Manny, I expected him to be that two-fisted, hyper-aggressive, offensive machine that we saw at 126 and 130 and even 135. The version that I got was the post-Juan Marquez 4 when he got knocked out. He turned much more into a boxer then. His boxing IQ changed. He didn't come right at me, even though I expected that. So you got to be careful getting too caught up in expecting that Manny that we all watched, because he's not that guy anymore, and he has adjusted his style. It still works. It's still very effective, as you saw in the Keith Thurman fight. But you got to be careful and understanding. At the end of the day, this is a different version.
You were in your breakdown talking about the size of the opponents that often Manny Pacquiao find himself with a taller fighter in the ring because of his stature. But you mentioned, of course, his fights with yourself, Margarito too, where he had successes as well, and also in terms of John Davis, who was in the ring with Barrios, the exploits that he was able to have success against Mario. What do you feel will be the telling factors for Manny Pacquiao to get his hand raised against Barrios?
Like I said, in that first round, I've been in the ring with Manny. Obviously, the thing that was most surprising, I expected him to be fast. I expected him to hit hard. I expected him to have a tremendous amount of experience and awareness. But his first step, that first move, was so fast. And it's funny, people ask me all the time, who had the best hand speed of anybody fought? I always say Amir Khan. I thought Amir Khan was faster. But Manny's first step, his footwork, his ability to close the distance, very, very explosive. If he still has that, and in that first round, I see him exploding off that back foot and throwing that left hand down the pipe, and he's able to touch Mario in the first round, we got to fight. But if the version of Manny that shows up is closer to who that guy was who fought the exhibition against the kickboxer last year, in which he's overthrowing the left hand and then he falls in square, his foot speed isn't there, and he has trouble evading, he gets caught in bad positions, then it's going to be a really long night for Manny Pacquiao and his fans.
Do you think, have you seen in Pacquiao's previous fights, and obviously considering the context of his age too, that he could make an adjustment and surprise even at his age to turn back the clock and be the destructive force at all? Or is it a case of genuinely, as you say, you're watching on PPV Live, the live watch along the chat as well too, that first round is going to tell you everything you need to know?
Yeah, I don't expect him to go back to being, that two-fisted explosive destroyer. But we saw in the Keith Thurman fight, the power's still there, right? We always say the power's the last thing to go. So he still had the power in that fight. He was able to drop Thurman in the first round. He hit him with a good body shot, and then that swivel jab over the top put him on his back, and got a lot of respect from Thurman, which was important. He also hurt him to the body later in the fight. So the power is still there. But in terms of him being able to keep up the volume with the fast feet and the in and out, he didn't really even have that against Thurman, and that was 6 years ago now. So he is a different fighter, still effective, was still very effective in that fight. But he had to stand his ground more. He had to deal with Thurman's combinations, and he got hit a lot in that fight. Weathered it great, showed a great chin and durability. But he's a different guy. He's not going to be that in and out explosive guy who's really difficult to hit. When I fought him, he was hard to hit, and people told me, people were always thinking that Pacquiao wasn't that good defensively. I found him to be difficult, and he didn't like being engaged with that much. So I think that was the post Marquez Pacquiao. But now I don't think he really has an option. He's got to be in the pocket to a degree because he can't get out as fast. But he's still dangerous, and he's willing to punch with you because he does believe in that power.
I wonder if there's a lot of knowledge shared between the both of Manny and Mario. I think Amir Khan was saying in a recent interview that Mario was at the gym looking for opportunities and things at Wildcard, and I wonder if you'd heard or seen any stories about Manny and Mario sharing rounds before, and that's part of the reason as to why Manny might have taken the option for this fight.
Interesting. I didn't hear that. I'm going to speak to Mario later in this week. I'll be sure to ask him that. I didn't know if that was really an issue. I mean, it makes sense though, because the way they came up, being in the Southern California area. But in terms of how this fight came about, I heard somewhere that Pacquiao was watching a Barrios fight and then said to Jinky, his wife, he's like, I can beat this guy. Like, what do you think about me fighting him? Kind of thing. Which doesn't surprise me because Mario Barrios, who for a while, I mean, Bob Santos is his trainer and is a friend of mine, and he's been telling me about Mario for years. He's like, oh, this kid's getting better all the time. Watch my guy. And I was watching him quite a bit, and I thought he was an ever-improving fighter. The Ugas fight was super impressive. And then, because Ugas is tough to look good against. Obviously Ugas beat Pacquiao. And Mario went out there and just was too strong, too sharp, too good for him that night. And then after that, his next two fights really left you wondering. It was Fabian Maidana and then Abel Ramos. And Mario looked very susceptible and vulnerable. You see those two fights, and yeah, if you're Manny Pacquiao's team, you're licking your lips. It's like, well, this guy gets hit. This guy's there to feel this power that we still have. He's got all those attributes that I mentioned that prime Manny Pacquiao liked. Tall, heavy on the front foot, doesn't really vary his jab up at mid-distance. Gets dropped by straight left hands to the body, gets dropped by right hooks over the top. all weapons that Manny's got or had. So it makes sense to me why Manny would come back now and against who he's fighting.
What is your official prediction for the fight?
I haven't announced my official prediction just yet. I'm leaning towards youth because Father Time is undefeated. But if anyone can pull one more out of the bag and go back to the well, it's Manny Pacquiao. So again, I want to see what they look at the weigh-in. The weigh-in's important for me, I think, especially seeing an aging fighter. And again, in those two exhibitions, which I don't think he trained for, mind you, I don't think Manny trained for those at all. He showed up and he looked fleshy. I've never seen Manny look like that. In recent videos, I've seen Manny looks to be in good shape. I want to see him on the scale. I want to see what he can do with that 46-year-old body. He looks like he's been training hard. He looks like he's in good shape. And then that first round, because those questions cannot be answered. Because if Manny shows up, and like I said, he's got that first step and he starts landing left hands early, he could very well win this fight.
Would your answer be a lot more conclusive if we were looking at a peak Pacquiao here?
Peak Pacquiao beats Mario Barrios. Not a question. I think he would be tailor-made, honestly. I wouldn't doubt it at all. It's the only reason why I give Manny a chance in this one. 46 and being out of the ring 4 years, it's a lot. I think the inactivity bothers me more than the age, actually. Because Manny, I've seen the way Manny lives. I've seen the way Manny eats. I know he's training hard. He's a simple guy. He stays in shape. He's a warrior. He's obviously physically gifted off the charts. The inactivity at this age, at this stage, where timing, rhythm, all those things are really important for an aging fighter to deliver that power. You got to think about George Foreman when he came back. Granted, it's heavyweight, but he fought. He was busy. He worked his way up to that title opportunity against Michael Moore when he was able to time that right hand. Manny's coming cold into this fight. So the inactivity bothers me even more than the age.
Let's say hypothetically, Manny does get his hand raised and captures that WBC world title. Where does it stand in amongst the great feats, like you mentioned about heavyweights and George Foreman? And also, what do you think is in line for him? He's spoken about that Floyd Mayweather rematch, how he feels that Floyd is running scared. Do you think that's an itch he wants to scratch? Does he want to capture more world titles? Does he just want to run the exhibition gambit? What do you think is in line if he does get his hands raised?
Well, so if he does it, first question is historic, absolutely tremendous, because it's sub heavyweight. You know, the heavyweight being the oldest heavyweight champion, George Foreman, that's amazing, but it's heavyweight. You don't have to punch as much. Power is less than to go. Timing is really important. Excuse me, all those things. So that in and of itself, being that it's a welterweight, and he would be at this age, would make it definitely historic. Would be one for the record books, on top of all the other accolades that he's accomplished over his illustrious career. But in terms of what's next, yeah, the Floyd fight, for Manny's perspective, makes a lot of sense. It's a lot of money. They're going to run it back. He's an older guy too. But do I think that Manny wins and goes off into sunset? No. I think he's going to look for more money opportunities. I wouldn't be surprised if Tank Davis comes into the equation of a potential opponent for Manny Pacquiao. I don't see him running the gamut with the other welterweights, trying to go collect more titles or trying to fight Brian Norman Jr., for example, or something like that. I would think he would look for super fights with the most money earning potential. Floyd would be that. Gervonta Davis would be that. Or like you said, the exhibition thing, I don't think so. I think obviously this shows he wants real fights.
Conor Benn is someone you faced off with, didn't he, over in Saudi Arabia? Conor was kind of calling out Manny Pacquiao before he fought Eubank Jr. Is that something you think could happen, win or lose for Manny?
That would come down to the team if they want to fight. Again, another young, hungry guy at the welterweight division. If Conor can get back down to 147, because he's got another fight at 160 now against Eubank. Making the weight's not going to be quite as easy, although he is young, so it's not out of the question whatsoever. Even though he's just saying it's so. Is it possible? I think Manny did show interest in that a couple years ago, but I don't know if he would anymore. Conor has gotten more seasoned. He's got more experience. He's not the same guy he was a couple years ago. So that would be interesting. But I mean, would it sell? Would it be enticing enough for Pacquiao to take the risk? It's very possible.
Would you weigh up a fight between Manny and Mario being a harder affair than Manny and Conor?
No, I think that's a good question. I mean, I like the fundamentals of Barrios, but again, like I said, I think a lot of the a lot of the attributes that Mario Barrios possesses are things that fall into Manny's wheelhouse. Whereas Conor, and I've said this before, Manny has more trouble with shorter guys that are more his eye level. Conor's not very tall for 47. He is explosive as well. He's physical, so it could be a more difficult fight for him at this age.
Just a couple of topics I'd like to discuss with you, Chris, whilst I have you here. Also, of course, in the UK, got a big undisputed heavyweight happening in the form of Usyk versus Dubois 2. What's your read on that fight, considering Dubois' recent successes and momentum, and, of course, Alexander Usyk still being at elite level? How do you see that one faring?
It's a difficult fight. It's a difficult fight for both guys, obviously. For obvious reasons, Dubois, it's a difficult fight because they've already fought and he got stopped. But there was some controversy in that fight with the quote-unquote low blow.
Was it?
I think it was. Again, it goes down to what the refs in discretion at the moment. It did scrape the belt line. It could have gone either way. I don't think that was the end all be all of the fight. But also you got to remember that fight was outside and the ring was slick, and that's going to affect a guy like Usyk, who's a mover. His ability to change directions, his ability to judge timing, his ability to fight his own fight, which he was able to do later in the fight anyway. He figured it out, and I think I've really enjoyed Dubois' maturing process recently. He went from a guy who was raked over the coals against the Juggernaut for quote unquote quitting, doing an eye orbital. And I remember going to bat for him because I've had my orbital broken. And people are like, oh, he's a quitter. I'm like, no, you've never broken your orbital. You don't know what they feel like. It's a very scary situation where you think you're going to lose your eye. It's very possible you can. You can end your career 100%, especially at heavyweight. And he was getting hit. So I went to bat for him for that. But then with Usyk, I thought he did break down and quit again. And it kind of showed, it's like, this guy, when it going gets tough, it seems like he does tend to pack it in. But then he goes on this tear, and he's fighting really tough guys where he's the underdog each and every fight. And to a degree is getting bullied by Big Baby Miller, by Ergovich, and he goes out there and stops these guys. And then obviously the Anthony Joshua fight, he looked world class, and now he's getting his opportunity again to run it back with Usyk. So it's a dangerous fight. He's young, he's strong, and he's riding high, but it's Alexander Usyk, man. I just don't see this guy losing. I'm so impressed with his ability to find another gear and figure out a way. And he's got to figure out a way against a guy he's already figured out the way for. He's already beaten him. Is it a dangerous fight? Sure. Father Time comes overnight, and he comes usually in the ring. Doesn't come in the gym. So it could be one of those situations with Usyk, but I don't think so. I think Usyk does what he does and gets a similar result.
I keep hearing media and some pundits suggest that Alexander Usyk is still great, but is showing signs of having lost a step. You're the former fighter with the eye. Has he shown that?
I don't see where they've seen that. I mean, he's looked great in his last couple fights. I thought he looked good against Fury, the last one. He's another guy who lives a clean lifestyle, stays in the gym. No, I haven't really seen that. I mean, listen, the guy's not a real heavyweight, and he's been fighting the biggest, baddest guys in the world consistently over and over and over again. Those first two fights with Anthony Joshua were super impressive. The fights with Tyson Fury were obviously impressive, but especially that first fight, it was a damaging fight. And listen, spending any time in the ring with Anthony Joshua is damaging. The guy hits hard, and he was finding Usyk at times. So you got to always wonder how much of is Usyk leaving in the ring fighting these bigger men consistently. But again, those are those things that you tend to fall off the cliff in those situations when you've given too much or gone too far or fought too long. So we won't really know until that moment. But I still think Usyk looks sharp.
Last question, otherwise I'm going to be here all day getting all your insights. Obviously, Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford. Just your breakdown and prediction, if you can, give that on that mega fight.
Well, first I'm going to flat out say it. I'm flip-flopping constantly on this fight. It's one of those fights that, initially I was like, this fight doesn't even make sense. There's weight classes for a reason. But then as we've gotten closer, especially based on their last couple performances, you see Canelo against School, and it was not impressive whatsoever. And then you see them next to each other, and you're like, maybe the size difference isn't that big. And then it's Terence Crawford. I mean, he's so damn talented, and if you doubt that guy, you're in trouble. So There's that, but it's just, but then again, you go back to the weight class. It's like it's Canelo Alvarez, and it's still Canelo. And not to mention, Canelo's actually the younger guy here. I think we're forgetting. Crawford's 38 years old and hasn't been active, hasn't fought in quite some time, choosing not to take a tune-up fight. So I think most of the time I've been leaning Canelo, but I have quite a few moments where I'm like, nah, dude. Crawford's going to do it. He's going to do it again. He's going to do it because that's what this guy does. This is going to be another one where it's like as we get closer and fight week comes up and I get to really see and study these guys, I'm gonna think about like when my final prediction is really going to come.
Chris, sincerely a pleasure to get your insights today, and I'm sure that the listeners and watchers of ppv.com live stream are going to be in for a treat getting your insights on Fight Night as well too. So tune in, and thanks so much for speaking to myself at Seconds Out. Look forward to getting more of a conversation with you throughout the week as well too.
Yeah, I feel like a good
Appreciate it.